has to say in relation to this. I am told that Mike Kagungu has managed to get a hold of him. Let's listen in to what it is that he says. This, as many leaders have committed to join Kenyans in the different areas to commemorate this day. Mike Kagungu, if you can hear us, Jambo.
Jambo, Linda, Alela, indeed, we are coming to you live from this other end of the city, and just to mention about Saba situation, how it started, and so far how it has unfolded. We have traversed across Thika Road, and now we are joined by Mheshimiwa Jeremiah Kioni, who is Jubilee Party Secretary General, to tell us on the update about Saba. Jeremiah, Mheshimiwa, if you can come closer, tell us what is the status and what is in mind about Saba today.
Perhaps I would do that by reading a statement which we have prepared as a party. Today, as Kenyans mark Saba Day, we stand in solemn remembrance of the brave men and women who, on the 7th of July 1990, rose up against authoritarianism, demanded multi-party democracy, civil liberties, and accountable governance. Kenyans recall the brutal KANU regime of the late President Moi, who changed the constitution in 1982 to outlaw all other political parties except his own, and went to formally exclude and leave out dissenting political voices in the infamous 1988 Morongo elections. Many Kenyans of goodwill, led by the late Kenneth Matiba, the late Charles Rubia, the late Martin Chukuku, among others, chose to defy this grievous political injustice perpetrated by the late President Moi. The government then, as now, met those brave Kenyans with brutal repression, arbitrary arrests, detention, torture, and even death. The heroes and heroines of 35 years ago succeeded in reversing Section 2A and canonizing in our constitution our national identity as a multi-party democracy. We also give ourselves the 2010 constitution that guarantees basic rights and freedoms in our progressive democracy, but we are now faced with a regime that seeks to roll back all these gains, a regime that refuses to govern according to the constitution. Today would have been Albert Ojwang's birthday, but this regime brutally killed him in gross violation of on his constitutional rights. The spirit of Saba is therefore not a relic of history. It is a living call to action, to a reminder that freedom is never given. It is a living call and a reminder that freedom is never given, but won through vigilance and sacrifice. This year's commemoration comes at a time when the country is once again at a crossroad. The Kenya we see today is one where the fundamental rights and freedoms guaranteed by our constitution are being curtailed. Peaceful protesters, many of them youth, have been met with bullets instead of dialogue. Corruption thrives as millions go hungry. Unemployment soars while public debt suffocates opportunity. Dissent is criminalized and public participation totally undermined. We are deeply disturbed by the continued extrajudicial killings and abductions and disappearances of peaceful demonstrators, many of them from the Gen Z generation whose only claim was to demand accountability and justice. Over 800 young people have been arrested and detained by this regime. Many have been tortured and killed. We stand with families of those affected and reiterate our call for public inquest and compensation in all cases of police brutality and unlawful killings. We salute the courage of the young people who have awakened the conscience of the nation. In their chants and placards, we hear echoes of Saba's defiance and the urgent demand for a new Kenya, where every voice counts, every life matters, and every leader must be held accountable. Our demands: 1. Immediate cessation of state-sponsored violence, including having guns in the streets, and unconditional release of all arrested protesters. Open and public inquest in all deaths and disappearances linked to protests, with individual officers and commanders held accountable. Respect for constitutional rights, including freedom of assembly, speech, and public participation. A national conversation not choreographed monologues on the cost of living, governance, and youth inclusion. Independent public oversight by IPOA on police conduct and urgent reforms to end the culture of impunity. And finally, we call on all Kenyans to honor this day by reaffirming their commitment to democracy, justice, and the rule of law. Let us stand united, not in fear, but in faith, in the power of the people, to bring change. As an opposition movement, we pledge to remain steadfast in defending the Constitution, standing with the people and holding this government to account. We shall not be silenced. The people shall. Yes.
So far, so good, Mheshimiwa. We have seen government quelled maandamano in all parts of this nation, including Nakuru and Kitengela. Do you think it's trying to avoid whatever happened in 25th and other maandamanos?
They are just still, they are scared of being called to being accountable, being called to upholding our rights. Remember, in our Constitution, the issue of protesting, picketing, is provided for. When we went around the country looking for, when we went around the world looking for other democracies, how do they handle picketing? Remember this. In countries like Brazil, they have provided corners for picketing and offices to receive petitions and officers to really escort the protesters. But what are we seeing? Instead of police officers doing what is expected of them, they actually bring in goons, which is also a confession that we actually don't have a government. This is a government of gangsters. How can they bring goons to the streets of Nairobi and other towns? Wamebeba rungu. Hii ni wedazima inagani.
In your demands, I have seen immediate cessation of state-sponsored violence. This is compared, contrary to 1990s Saba protests and demands when they wanted multi-party democracy. Do you think Saba has changed its call from the initial quest?
I think the thing is that we who now can lead about what Charles Ruby and others did need to live up to the same spirit. What they were fighting for, and they got it, and we got it in our Constitution, is what is being taken away by Ruto and his group. And we must fight for it. When we see goons in the streets, it means that this government is even more fearful than the Moi government. Moi, at least we were dealing with police officers. This time, they are hiring goons to come and clobber our own children. Unachukua watoto, waue watoto wale wengine. It is the beginning of an end. And in my opinion, this guy may have taken police officers to Haiti. Maybe he wants to create a Haiti in this country.
Mheshimiwa, lastly, we have seen the country coming to a standstill in all across all towns. Do you think you as opposition and Gen Z have achieved what you wanted to bring the country to a standstill so that government can act?
The fact that the whole country is now at a standstill is actually demonstration, is evidence that the people in power are completely out of control of the systems, one. Two, the fact that there is no one political leader who came out to say, kama vile tulikuwa tunasema Tuesday, this is now Kenyans themselves saying, enough is enough. A clear demonstration that even where we were in the 1990s, we are now doing worse than that time. My call to Kenyans, and again to Gen Z, we say, long live the Gen Z generation. They are the ones who've given us now a new fighting spirit. It's actually a success for the Gen Z. They have no leader, but they say they will not be going to work on 7th, and it has happened. Hakuna Raila sasa. Ruto, ile anaweza kufanya is just to write an exit plan so that he can help us as Kenyans to settle and look for a new direction. Yes.
Actually, that is the question I wanted to direct. Without Raila Odinga, he has led Saba protests in the past few years, and this year he's nowhere. He's not leading anyone. You think it's high time he thinks of another option? No,
I know Raila is already in a broad-based government, so he has already gotten that option. But the Kenyans were left high and dry, and they are now charting their way forward. It's only fair that we give them an opportunity, and that's why we are calling for a dialogue, not like the Nadiko thing that was stage managed by William. Not that kind of a nonsensical thing. A proper conversation. And we are also not looking for amending the constitution because we cannot trust any amendment of the constitution with this regime. It's a question of how do we address the cost of living. All this ni kwa sababu ya maisha imekuwa ngumu. Si mambo ingine. Kama watu wangekuwa na makazi ya kufanya na wanakula, wanalala, hospitali iko sawa, we will not be where we are. So it is not a constitution that we want to amend. That we can do when we have a more sensible team in power. But not with this one. But we need a conversation to ensure that we do not completely get into anarchy.
Thank you so much for your statement. Linda Alela, indeed, that is Jeremiah Kioni, Party Secretary General for Jubilee Party, talking about his sentiments on Saba spirit. And we shall be traversing across Thika Road and other main streets of Nairobi to bring to you up to date on what is happening and unfolding during this Saba Day of protest as scheduled by Gen Z and a section of Kenyans. Back to your studio. My name is Mike Kagwango.
All right, Mike Agungu, thank you so much. Extensive conversation there with the Secretary General of Jubilee Party, Jeremiah Kioni. It looks like today things are not so easy for the leaders because evidently that is probably around his home. So that's a clear indication that even the key leaders have not